just not being able to be there and hold my mom's hand, rub her head, tell her the things that I wanted to say to her. It was such a helpless feeling. I can just remember the days leading up, feeling so frustrated and helpless and not being able to talk to her because she was, not conscious during that time. And I was just outside working in my yard. My yard's never looked better. It was the only thing I had any control over. It was just such a difficult time.
No, to not be able to sit with your mother, as you said, to hold her hand, to brush her hair. I know my own mother's watching, and forgive me, but I feel for you.
Thank you.
So what happened? This charge nurse realizes that your mother is basically breathing her last breaths, and that is when she picks up the cell phone and FaceTimes you. Tell me what happened.
So the nurse and staff and the healthcare professionals at Swedish Issaquah Hospital were amazing. They knew we couldn't be with her. I could tell the emotion in both their and the doctors' voices of their frustration knowing we couldn't be there or risk the infection. So the nurse, Tatiana, at the end, she had called me about 10 o'clock at night and said, your mother's breathing is changing. We can see that it probably won't be much longer. I'm going to take my cell phone. So it was her personal cell phone, and I'm gonna go and get dressed in all the protective gear I have to be in, and then I'm going to put the phone up to her face so that you can tell her you love her and say your goodbyes. And it was so touching just to know that I couldn't be there. And I said to the nurse, I said, can you please hold her hand? Can you rub her head? Can you pretend, we're there with her. And she said, she will not be alone. We will stay with her to the end. And so 10 minutes later, we get the phone call for FaceTime, and, she put it right up to my mother's face. And, I could tell my mom I loved her and how much I was going to miss her. And as I was finishing saying goodbye and the nurse, took the phone back up, I could see the nurse is just crying, like tears just coming out of her eye, through the mask. I could see it, and I know how difficult this is for them. I can't even imagine being on the front lines of that and having to go home every day and risk infection themselves, but then have the compassion and the empathy to be right there in that moment as if it was their own mother. And that was one of the most amazing things I've experienced.
Do you feel that your mother at least passed in peace?
I hope so. I know she wasn't alone. That was the biggest thing for me, was for not to die alone, and the hope that was given by those nurses holding her hand and staying with her to the end. My mom was a nurse for 38 years, probably doing the same for other people. So it's amazing to me that these nurses were able to give back to her in that way.
What did you say to your mom exactly?
I said, I love you very much. Every mother-daughter relationship has their trials. And we had been speaking a lot over the last couple months about the past and good times, bad times. And I was just sort of processing it, and I never got a chance to say, hey, bygones be bygones. I forgive everything that we were talking about, just as she's forgiven me. And that was kind of the last moment. I forgive you, Mom. I love you. I know I didn't get a chance to say it. And, it's so hard to express what you're feeling and not being able to be there, your energy to be present in that moment. And, I'm hoping, even though it was FaceTime and it's technology, she could hear me, she could hear my voice. And I said, Mom, it's okay to pass on. It's okay to go now. Within an hour, I think she needed to hear that. I think she was holding on until we were able to say, it's okay to go.
Love and forgiveness is a powerful thing. It's not even my own mother. My heart just grieves for you. My final question is just, have you spoken with the nurse, Michelle? And what would you want to say to these heroes at the hospital?
I want to give them everything I have, the world for their care and compassion. One of them talked to my sister for 45 minutes after she was off shift, just comforting her on her own time. I want to hug them. I want to tell them how much they mean. I cannot thank them enough for that opportunity. I can't imagine not having had the opportunity to say goodbye, to say you can pass, to say I forgive you and I love you. Like I can't imagine not having had that, and they provided that. I can't even thank them enough. The gratefulness I have is just understated.
Michelle Bennett, just thank you. Be well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.